Hello, everybody. It's Deana from the Realize Foundation, and today I'm here with Coleen Greco, and she is a joyologist, and I can't wait for you to hear her story because it doesn't all start with joy, but she's going to tell you how she got from there to here. So, Colleen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Happy to. Thanks, Deana. Hi, everyone. My name's Coleen Greco, and I'm a joyologist. And you're right, I didn't start here. From a career perspective, I spent 26 years in IT marketing, going through the ranks of leadership, and didn't realize how much I lacked presence until we had a trauma here in the house. One of my kids had a suicide attempt, and that was, as you might imagine, pretty jarring. Um, but it really caused me to take a massive step back, probably many steps back, if I'm being honest, and really evaluate like what really matters in life. And so I did that. I took a huge step back, realized I wasn't present in my life. My job was stealing my soul. I wasn't being very focused on my family. I thought I was by providing and doing all the other things, but not really, um, like focused on who they are to their core. And so initially, I will say I didn't handle it well. And I think anybody listening will be like, I'm sure you didn't. Who would?
Mhm.
I ate and drank a lot. The drank part, not a lot, but every day for sure. And put on a bunch of weight. And when I realized that we weren't going to have any support to help our family heal, and by the way, for folks listening, I live in Boston. So when I say that no therapists or doctors would return our phone calls, that's pretty shocking to say, but it's the truth. Um, we were on our own to heal, and I really had to get my life under control in order to help my family heal. And so that's what we did. And in the early days, we um, we just really anchored on joy and the smallest of moments. So right behind my head, you can see the word joy. It's part of everything we do now, but we really focus on joy in the smallest of moments. When you have a suicide attempt, if people haven't had that experience, well, that's great. Um, but you really focus on the second to second mentality. There is no thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch. That's too far into the future. I'm thinking surviving into the next second and keeping my family safe. And so joy was kind of how we linked those seconds together. And we found it in everything. We found it in people watching. We found it in frolicking with our dogs. We found it in the little things like, oh, did I drop that thing again? You know, just anything we could. We just tried to make it lighthearted and fun. And before we knew it, those second by second moments turned into minutes, turned into hours, turned into I could think about what I could have for lunch and we could start to breathe again. And it was through this whole experience where I realized that this whole experience put me on my path to my calling. And my calling is to help other women not have to go through what I went through and help them to anchor their life in joy, regardless of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, would you mind talking a little bit about what was happening around the time that of his attempt and like what he was dealing with that made him feel that way?
Sure. So at the time he was 10, so really young, obviously.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to say this without, it's going to offend somebody, and I don't mean it like this. So just bear with me. This is a mom speaking, but you kind of have this vision in your mind of what a bullying target would look like, right? It's like a kid
Mhm.
that cowers and folds into him or herself and doesn't have a lot of friends and is kind of quiet and maybe a little, aloof or something. That's not who he was or is. He is was at the time the most popular kid in school. He was star athlete. He was, at the top of his like academics. I mean, on paper, he was what you would want in a child. We didn't want him to be popular. He just was, because he was so magnetic in his personality. And so what ended up happening was, kind of like your classic king of the mountain scenario, where there's only room for one at the top. So for people that never played king of the mountain growing up, you're at the, you kind of fight to the top of the dirt pile, and it's small at the top. And so there's only room for one. And it was between him and his best friend, and his best friend was the one that bullied him and knocked him down.
Wow.
Yep. And to make matters worse, and I hope this doesn't come across victimy, because I don't at all feel that way, but the parents of that child were our friends, and they refused to see it. And I think that was probably one of the toughest parts of this whole journey, was when I confronted them and said, like, I need you to know this happened. Okay. I don't want your kid to apologize. I don't care about any of that, but you need to know actions have consequences and chain reactions. And they said to me, "You think your kid has it bad? My kid's reputation was tarnished." And I thought, you're asleep. So I'm not going to go any further. And just really focus the rest of the time on our son. He went an entire year without a play date, which at 10 is pretty traumatic. Heck, at my age, it's pretty traumatic not to go, not to be thought of by anybody for an entire year is just horrific. And, but I'm so happy to say now that, we're looking at colleges. He is, a great athlete. He is in the National Honor Society. He's just a good human being, super kind. He has a huge heart. And so, I just feel like we won. We won the lottery.
Sorry, that makes me emotional, but I get emotional everything. I get that from my
I'll
mother.
cry with you. It's okay. No.
But I think that, what I've learned through this journey of starting the Realize Foundation 4 years ago is that there are people in the world who find out what we're doing, or they have a conversation with me and they're like, it's great what you're doing. It's so needed. And, maybe they know there's high suicide rates and they keep rising, but they don't really understand. They've never been touched by it. So they don't really understand. They have no concept of what it would feel like to not want to live. Like, there are just so many people in the world that have that mindset. Yeah. And I will say, there was a lady who wrote in one of our books who was like that. She was supportive of what I was doing. She was like, we really need this. It's so important. And then one day I got a call from her. Like, she called me on my cell phone and she was shaken. And she was like, Deana, I have someone in my family who has just been put in a psych hold. And it was a younger person. And she said, I don't know what to say to them. Can you help me? And it's because she had never been close to a situation like that. So although she knew it was an important issue, she had no idea what something like that would mean, or what to say, or how to talk about it. And so it's part of why we have these 4 short free videos on our website called the Hope Course. And we talk about how do you start the conversation? That's what the H is. How do we talk about this? And I think it seems so trivial and minor until you're in a situation like that. And then it's like, it's so important. And so our job, our mission is, how do we make people aware of these things, even when they think they don't need the tools?
Yeah. For me anyway, I started with, who do I know? Who can I call? Like, what do I say? And so I called this doctor, And they put us in touch with like the emergency response group who came out and evaluated him to make sure he was no longer a threat to himself. And then they left. Okay, is there a plan? Like what you're just it's kind of like when you have a baby and they're just like, okay, bye, you can go take care of that baby now. And you're like, what do you mean you want me to take care of this other human? I don't even know, it doesn't speak my words anyway, right? Kind of the same thing, like you're leaving. And they handed me like this big thick document of therapist to call. And I was like, I'm just supposed to go through the phone book and make phone calls? Yes. That's your solution. Okay. So I did. I made over 100 phone calls. Nobody returned our phone calls. And then I also reached out to friends. I have a few friends that have either direct experience with suicide, suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, or like somebody in their family had an experience. And they turned me on to the I'm going to get the name wrong, but like the National Association of Suicide Prevention. And that was a hotline. He wasn't in danger well, I mean, maybe he was, but he seemed like he was pretty stable. Like, but now how do I rebuild? No resources. He was 10. They don't have it. And so literally I said, well, I am just going to shower the you know what out of him with love. Because I know love is the answer to everything. And if I can't heal him through love, then there's no hope. And so it was through love and then, tactically through these joy moments that we were able to do it. But had there been resources like you're referring to, I would have gobbled those up and applied them. I was so desperate for information. One of my friends said, call the police. I'm like, what are they going to do? Like what, arrest him? He's 10, right? Or say, wow, that's going to be tough for you. Like, I don't need the empathy or the sympathy. I need like a recipe card to follow, somebody to tell me what to do, because I don't know what to do. And so I relied on what my intuition told me to do, which was just love him. And we are going to love him until we can't love him anymore. And then I'm going to dig down into that, into the bottom of my toes and find more of it and give more. And that's how we did it. And I just believe that is the recipe. That is the answer. It's love. Even when you don't want to, even when you're too tired.
Yeah. I think that is amazing. I also think there's so many people I talk to that don't have love in their family. And even if they're not suicidal, they've been through abuse or trauma of some sort. And how those people live through that for years and years and then get to be an adult and still, like me, have all this stuff that you didn't ever process, because sometimes we go through things like that and our parents don't even know. And there's not the outpouring of love that your son got. And so I think there's so many different situations and different resources and different ways people handle it. And I think that's why I think these conversations are so important, because if there's somebody going through something and they're being helped or comforted or loved in a certain way, they don't maybe know what else is available. And so our conversations give people more resources or more information that could help them. We have a lady who wrote in one of our books who was in the foster care system, and she was abused her whole life. And then she went in the military to get away from it. And she said that was worse. And, and now she helps people heal their trauma as an adult. And so there's so much of this trauma and mental health stuff in the world that we don't see. You can't see on somebody's face. It's not written on their forehead. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I'm PTSD. I'm whatever. And it's like, how do we just start these conversations and be kind to each other so we can find what we need. But I would like to ask you, like, did he go back to the same school after that?
Yeah, we gave him the choice if he wanted to school choice to another town. Our town's, I don't know, almost 300 kids in his class. And so he felt like that was, like big enough that he could kind of get lost in another crowd. Um, but again, he was well known, is well known. I'm not trying to talk about him like he was in the present, but I mean the 10-year-old version of him is not, the current version of him. But there's a small town next to us where I think the graduating class is like, I don't know, 50 or 60. I said that might be a little bit better, but it could be worse, right? If you don't get along with anybody, that's a really small group to be a part of. But no, he was very adamant that, he lives in this town. That's where he wants to go to school. That's the kids that he's used to being in sports with, everything. He didn't want anything to change. And I commend him for that, because I'm not sure. There were so many days where I was like, do I pull the parent trigger and be like, oh, I'm the parent, you're out? Because it was really hard. I still see those people, and to not want to run them over with my car is really hard, right? Because there is that parental, like the mother bear. But I have, for the most part, except for one person, really forgiven them, because they don't know any better. They are living through their kids. I know exactly who these people are, how they were raised, how they, like what they do in the area, and they 100% live and die by their kids. And so if that like structure is threatened, what do they have? And that's not how we were. And so, I like I said, I really commend him. I was really honest with every single person in the school district. Like, I am on you. I'm watching you. I am watching every single teacher. I'm reading every single note. Like, you need to know that this is serious. And even though because of the way it happened, there were instances in school and instances out of school, but like not enough to call it bullying in school or call it bullying. Like, it wasn't enough in one area that it could be like a criminal offense. It's like crazy to me. But I said, semantics aside, you know what happened. I know what happened, and I'm watching you. And they were great. And they were really, in fact, I have two school principals on my street. And I kept in very close contact with the one that was the principal of his school, and said, if I so much as see a hair out of place on him, I want to have a conversation about it. Like, I'm not joking around. And he was great. I mean, he called me so many times on a Sunday night to check in, and, oh, I saw your son like riding his bike down the street. And it was great. So we did have support there. But I do want to underscore something that you said about love. I want people to understand that even if you don't feel like you have love, like in your immediate circle, seek out the love of a stranger. If somebody is giving you eye contact and saying good morning, that is love. It doesn't like feel like that real big bear hug, and it doesn't make you feel like particularly warm and cozy, but that's love. That sometimes is enough to carry you through to the next second. And then seek it out again, and then give it to somebody. And that kind of stuff multiplies, and that will help as you begin to, kind of like find your new tribe of people that want to support you and lift you up.
Yeah, that's a good
And if
point.
not, there's you and I, and we will love on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we're here for. Something you talked about your son being known, and I think he played sports, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, do you think the pressure of being the best at whatever sports he was playing or something like that played into any of this?
Not for him, but for the bully and the bully's friend, definitely. So for him, we were like, just play sports. And he's just a natural athlete. He just kind of like, whenever he was little, so like 2 or 3, if there was any kind of ball in the house, we used to call him Puppy, because he would go after all the balls. It didn't matter if it was soccer or tennis or basketball or whatever. He was like, ball, and he would play with it. So that was just his thing. And he became this awesome soccer player, and he would do all the little like foot tricks that
Mhm.
like good soccer players know how to, I can't do, but good soccer players know how to do. And
Mhm.
so he was like natural at soccer, and then he got into basketball, and he was really good at basketball. And those kids didn't have the natural mechanics, and so they worked harder. One of them had a weight set. I think he was like 10 or 11 by the time he got like a weight set, like a bench press whole like right as a child.
Wow.
Now, I also do personal training, so I know how unhealthy that is, right? But like he's not even fully developed yet, and he's pushing some serious muscle. So I do think there was some significant pressure on their side. We never pressured him. We said, try it. Now what happened was he was in basketball, and all of those kids were his friends on the team, and they convinced him to try out for football. And I did not want him playing football. Just because I think it's pretty rugged. I love the sport, but like what it does to the players'
Mhm.
brains and things is like a little disturbing. No
Mhm.
offense to anybody listening that plays football, but I didn't want it for like my little baby's head.
Mhm.
And that's where it happened. The bully gave him a concussion, knocked him completely backwards, like butt over tea kettle, I think is the expression. And he got a concussion. And that's where all of it really like the heat intensified, where the bully's friend was like, yeah, you better not come back to practice or I'll give you a real concussion. And all this stuff kept happening over the course of the week. It was like more taunting at school leading up to the final event. Like the straw that broke the camel's back was he was uninvited to a birthday party sleepover. Well, actually, he wasn't uninvited. The mom called me and I had to uninvite him. And that was it. I mean, he just absolutely lost it. He just
Mhm.
felt rejected.
Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy. Um, so how about the healing process for him? I know from his family, he had much love, but and how did he progress at school after that? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So he was in some intensive therapy at school. They pulled him out like a couple of times a day to just make sure like his classroom setting was okay and stuff. Um, and after about 6 weeks, that really pared back. Um, I wasn't crazy about that, but that's what they could offer. And then his grades didn't slip at all, which is like amazing to me. I'm I would not have been that lucky. And then so let's see, this all happened in September. Then like it was kind of like his birthday, and so we made a really big deal about his birthday. It was just the four of us. He didn't have any friends come, all this stuff. Um and then that entire year goes by, he has no play dates, nobody reaching out to him on social media. I think at that point he had Instagram and I was policing it like crazy. And then the year mark came around and he just, I don't know if it's because his class switched or what was really the thing, but he started getting little messages on Instagram, like people commenting on his posts that were like favorable. And he started to let his wall down a little bit. And he had really two friends that year. Now, fast forward, he just had his junior prom. There were 38 kids in that picture. So imagine how hard I'm crying, remembering that year like it was yesterday, and then seeing 38 kids in that picture that were he was in the middle of that picture. And those were his like friends. They weren't like people that took the same bus with him. Like they were his friends. And I was like, we did it. I don't care what happens after this. We did it. Like he's gonna be okay.
That's great. When you were talking about the birthday, it made me think about, I think a couple of days ago we watched this movie. It's called Yes Day. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's about this family with three kids and how they say their mom's not fun anymore and how They just want to, they want her to say yes to things because she always says no. And it is the best movie for a family to watch. So that might be something that
I just wrote it down. I'm gonna check it out. Is it on Netflix or where'd you
I
see it?
think, I don't remember. My husband found it, but
Okay, I'll
it's
find it.
like actors that you would know. I just can't remember their names, but it was really good. It was a fun family movie.
Yeah. Well, I am definitely between the two of us, he is more fun. Somebody has to be the one to keep all the rigidity in place, but yeah, I think I'll check that one out.
Thank you. Well, Colleen, thank you so much for sharing the intimate details of your family
Of
with
course.
us, and in case that it will help someone else in a similar situation.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell everybody a little more about what you do, and I'll put your link up where anybody watching can find you.
Sure. No, I'd love to. So, first of all, for folks tuning in, thank you for allowing me to share this. And Dina, thank you for having me on. The more I have had people actually say, it's his story. I was there too. I mean, it brought suicidal ideations out of me. I mean, I was there too. And I firmly believe, and so does he, that we have to talk about this. We have to make it okay and create a safe space. And so, what has come out of this is the work that I do now, where I help women to feel comfortable in their own skin. So many women come to me and they say, I'm stuck and I don't know why. That's mental health. And that mental health doesn't mean you have to have a litany of labels, right? You don't have to be a this or a that. It could just be, I feel like a prisoner in my own body. I don't know what's going on. I help them to remove limiting beliefs so that they can be put on their path to their fullest potential, so they can be firmly rooted in joy and have that firm foundation of self love that, by the way, is our birthright. We are supposed to love ourselves, but we have been deconditioned over decades to think and behave a certain way. So I work with them to do that deconditioning so that they can live the life they're meant to live. And it's a real honor and it's a privilege that I don't take lightly. And I welcome anybody that just wants to feel that inner joy, that inner knowing that they are enough exactly the way that they are. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing at the time it's supposed to be done, and remove those stories, the not good enough, not smart enough, I'll never be enough. All of that is like such garbage. And I don't I don't get you to see what you don't already know. You just don't believe it.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that, I have a prime example from myself about, pushing myself for 40 years to do everything right and prove myself and please other people. And in 2020, when I lost everything, it was a really hard year taking a look at myself, like you're saying, and processing old trauma and figuring out who I was and what I was supposed to do with myself. And
Yeah.
it's a very common thing because we just get caught up in this day to day. This is what I have to do every day, and we hardly ever have any time to ourselves. And I don't even have kids. I have step kids, but I didn't even have kids living with me all those years. I just worked all the time. And so I think it's something that people do need to take a step back and really look at what's going on and what do I really want to do, and what is my purpose in this world? What is my zone of genius? What is, what is going to make me happy? Because if
Mhm.
you've lived most of your life doing what you think everybody else wants you to do, like I did, um, it's time for you to find that joy in your life and find what's right for you and process all this mental health stuff we've been stuffing down for years. So,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yes. And if there was a single person listening that for 1 second thinks they don't have a limiting belief, I would invite you to take a little step, little journey inside, because every single human being on this planet has a limiting belief, has many limiting beliefs, hundreds, thousands. Now,
Mhm.
some of them are just annoying and you're not going to do anything about them. You're like, you have that moment where you're like, I did it again. And then you're back on track. Those are
Mhm.
annoying. But the ones that are keeping you stuck, like, I'm not good enough, so I'm going to keep myself small and not make that leap into starting my own business. Like, that's a big deal, not okay. So that's the kind of work that I do. So
Yeah.
I'd be honored and welcome any discussion.
Yeah. Well, if y'all are, if you're having a situation with a child that you need help with, or you need more joy in your life, please reach out to Colleen. She's awesome. And I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation. And thank you again, Colleen, for having it with me.
Thank you, Deana. It was great. I appreciate it.